Should you take advantage of your dating app's feature to send voice notes? It's a good question because it might be weird. What do you need to think about? Let's talk about the pros and cons coming up next. What's good, everyone? Mario here. In this video, I want to speak to my online daters. Some of you out there are noticing a new feature on your dating app. It's called audio or voice note. And what it is simply an alternative to having to type out every message you want to send. Instead, you can just press and hold a button to record a voice message to send somebody. Now, here's the thing. This feature isn't offered on but a handful of apps right now. And I can see that changing though. In the future, I can see most dating apps actually embracing this feature. So then the question becomes, should you use this feature? Is it a good idea for you? That's what we have to kind of think about because with online dating, it's full of all sorts of informal rules, do's and don'ts, things that aren't ever written down, but just the way it works out. For example, pre COVID 19, pre quarantine, if you were using the video chat feature on your dating app, you were the exception, one of very few people who are using those features, and you would kind of stand out, and it just wasn't something that people were looking for, and you could have stood out for the wrong reasons. Could have made a negative impression, and we want to kind of be mindful of that and make a good decision for you. So in this video, I want to help you think about what you want to do when you're in this situation and making that decision. I want to share with you my pros, my cons, and ultimately my verdict on this feature. But first, I want to remind you, if you're not fully satisfied with your current love life experiences online or in person, then I invite you to join my free Love Life Academy, where I send out free video lessons and offer various opportunities and resources, and they're all designed to help you level up your game and your love life. So if you're serious about making a positive impact in that area, definitely click the link in the description. We'd love to have you. All right, so let's start off with some pros. If you're gonna use this feature when it's available on your dating app, what are some pros? Well, the first one that I want to point out, and maybe the biggest one, is that it's a pattern break. It's a pattern disrupt. And that's important because when it's attraction, dating, or online dating, standing out is the first thing that you want to do. You want to get noticed. And that's what this will do because you'll be the one using it and everyone else will be using text messages. So, in that sense, you stand out. So, that's a pro for it. Okay, next, it might be beneficial for people who don't like texting. So, maybe you've got fat thumbs and you're always terrible at texting. Maybe you're terrible at spelling. Or maybe it's just a time waste where you're spending 3 minutes to text something where you could say it in 10, 15 seconds if you use that feature. Something to think about. All right, then also, this feature allows you to kind of show off more of your personality and your intent behind your messages. So when people get to hear your voice, they kind of get to hear your inflections, your pauses, maybe even your sarcasm and your playfulness, or if you're serious. So there are all sorts of messages that people just don't get when they get your written out text messages. Those messages they read in their own voice with their own inflections and whatever. So they kind of create the way that they're going to interpret it. In this way, you kind of have more opportunity to show off your personality and intention behind those messages. Then I'd say another huge pro is that this opportunity to use a voice note allows you to kind of just have a more intimate form of communication than text messaging. All right. Because as I said, text message is just like they're putting the sort of way of reading into your message on themselves. With this, you are kind of stepping up, and it's not you standing next to them in person yet, but it's a little bit more intimate than just sending a text message. And as another pro, and maybe a big pro that I would say, if you have a good way of sending out those voice notes and it's positive in the way that you use them, it can make it that much easier for you to level up to, say, a phone call and going out in person. It can make that transition smoother and maybe faster. Something to think about. Now, let's get into some of the cons then. What would be some of the cons that we might need to be thinking about for these voice notes? Well, the very first one is that not everybody's using it or familiar with it or has ever used it. So that's going to make you stand out, and being first, being different isn't always best. That's something that you just kind of have to consider. The next thing that you're going to have to consider is, are people comfortable when you send them a voice note, because they might feel a little bit of pressure to reciprocate, and or they might just be like thinking to themselves like, geez, this person sent me a voice note, am I supposed to send that back? And you don't want to have everybody in their heads but that's a possibility. I'm not saying it's a reason that you should avoid this at all costs, but it's just something that we have to consider. All right, then also a big sort of thing to consider is privacy. All right, now, sure, nobody's in their phone, but can they play that message whenever they want? Not necessarily. In gatherings where they have friends, family, or they're in public, it's not always convenient to press a button and let everybody hear the message. They don't know what's on there either. That's critical. I mean, sure, they might have headphones, but you can't count on that. So there's an element of concern for privacy because they may not be able to play your message in public, or if they do, maybe it's not the best idea. All right. Then what about if we mess up on this effort to send a voice note? Well, I know with Bumble, you can, if you hold down the button, you can just continue to swipe left and it'll get rid of your message like it never happened and you can just start over. But I can see a lot of opportunities where people are pressing something and they forget to swipe left or they try and swipe left and it doesn't work and they end up sending a message they're like, shit, I didn't want to send that one. And I can also see possibly some of those dating apps not really thinking about that or thinking like that's not going to be a big deal. And they maybe possibly roll out a feature with a voice note that doesn't offer any sort of, you know, backup for needing a do-over. And I think that's a big deal. And like if you've ever sent a bad voicemail, like fuck, I wish I could do that over. Like think about how this could impact. Right. Then I would say one more con is that it requires knowledge of better strategies. This is just a different area. Like now, before there weren't voice notes and now there are. So there's got to be some better strategies, right? For example, like you don't want to send one that's too long. I know when I was testing out the Bumble voice note feature, I was timing it and I was like, well, shit, I'm getting over 3 minutes. I wonder how long this goes. And it didn't take long before I was just like, fuck that. It doesn't matter how long it goes. People shouldn't be sending messages that are over 3 minutes and probably shouldn't be anywhere near that. They should be short, close, concise messages, whether they're text or audio. So there are always going to be better strategies. For example, how do you impose your frame that this is normal and it's okay for me to send a voice note? How do you pick your spots? Because sometimes you might have to consider like, should I send a voice note here? Is this because I really find it convenient and maybe I don't have access to my hands to type out something? Because what you do have to kind of think about picking your spots is there might be points where this kind of throws a monkey wrench into the conversation because, as I said, somebody might not be always able to play your message at that moment in time. And if they can't play your message, they can't respond to it. And that just puts a pause to the conversation. And that's something you have to consider. So, a lot to think about. We have pros and we have cons. My personal verdict is I give this a thumbs up. And I give it a thumbs up because I think this is worth implementing. I think you just have to be responsible with it and kind of tinker with it a little bit. I don't think it's for all the time. I know it's not for all the time, but there has to be some calibration where you're just like, oh, I could use this here. I could throw this in, but you have to kind of work with it and kind of figure out your spots. Now, this won't make or break you, though. That's the big thing that you do need to understand. Just because you use a voice note doesn't mean that you're going to succeed or fail. It's always going to be about your total package, everything that you've shown and displayed up to that point in time. This just is one thing that might be a good thing for you or a bad thing for you. So I say try it, get used to it, maybe work on some calibration and see how you get some results. If it works well for you, if not, maybe this isn't something that's great for you. You might not be the best, with the voice messages. You might be better at text messaging. But I think this is something that everybody should think about considering to their toolbox of how you're going to connect with people online. Sometimes you really have to be aware of all the things that are in your toolbox, and then you just get to pick and choose which ones you pull out for which moment. That's what it's about. So remember that. And if you have different thoughts about this, or if you have different pros and cons that you want to share about this topic, I'd love to hear them. And other people would too. There's probably tons of things that I didn't cover, but maybe you can remind us. All right. Now remember, if you want to get better results, you do have to become better. I want you to get there. As always, take care. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you appreciated the content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you're ready to level up your love life, take 30 seconds to visit my website right now. Join my free academy. I'll send you exclusive content and invitations to participate in my online group conference calls. And if you're ready for serious change, sign up for a free barrier breakthrough phone call with me.